Adolescence is a terrifying experience. With raging hormones, constant angst, and awful transformations, growing up can be a hell of a bad time. Coming of age is particularly troublesome for young women, as evidenced by numerous horror films. Female protagonists, like the hailed final girl type, are so often the action heroes of the horror genre who conquer their adolescent trauma. Yet what makes teenage girls scary? From first periods to pressured feelings about sexuality, horror films provide a perfect metaphor for what teenagers go through as they come of age. As the antagonists in these films, female horror villains are often the embodiment of the fears, disgust, and emotions that make coming of age so terrifying. Over the past couple of decades, there has been an increase in coming-of-age horror with iconic films like Jennifer's Body and Ginger Snaps.
Are you sure it's just cramps?
Just so you know, the words just and cramps, they don't go together.
At the heart of girl adolescent evolution is blood. In horror, blood becomes the conduit for expressing femininity within the narrative, not just a result of physical violence. Blood as a teenage girl is the first sign that your body is changing and betraying you. It comes around at the most inconvenient moments, and nothing is more inconvenient than getting your period the same day you get bit by a werewolf. This is how Ginger Snaps takes minstrel horror and flips it on its head. On the night of Ginger's first period, a werewolf attacks her. The curse of a werewolf and period cycle lead Ginger through physical and mental changes that blur the lines between normal and monstrous. Horror film theorist William Paul, in his book Laughing and Screaming, explains that menstruation is specifically tied to monstrosity and that we are made to feel the grossness of the flow of blood. The pretty has been made ugly, the attractive made repulsive. The early signs of lycanthropy are like puberty. Ginger's hair grows in odd places, her sexual interest is increasing, and her mood changes for the worse. Menstruation is the birth of Ginger as a threat.
What's wrong, moron? You can't fix this!
You don't know that. Just give me a chance.
What, another one? God, gee, I don't know, B. See, I'm going way, way out there, way, way far from where you live, which is pretty much a fucking rule.
Initially, her transformation poses as regular, as normal. Adult women assure her of her normality. In fact, the delighted urgency they express towards the girls and their dismissal of adolescent worry and confusion towards Ginger's curse is horrifying on its own.
It's a period.
But really, it was like a
Geyser. Everyone seems to panic their first time. Now, neither of you have had a period before, and you're how old?
I'm almost 16. She just turned 15. She skipped a grade.
Ginger is forced to accept this diagnosis. It is with this acceptance that another symptom of her curse begins to emerge. Ginger's sexual identity appeals to the attention of high school boys such as Jason McCarty. Ginger's transformation is tied to her sexual awakening as she replaces the close bond with her sister Bridget with boys. Her interest in boys and vice versa disgusts Bridget because it represents the acceptance into the sexualized world that they had vowed to avoid at the beginning of the film. In his book, Monsters and Mad Scientists, Andrew Tudor analyzes this change from victimhood to monsterhood. The unusual change in the victim, from a state of passivity to one of activity, makes sense if explained in terms of a rite of passage for the pubescent girl. Like it or not, because of her period, Ginger is now changing into the type of girl she and her sister mocked at the beginning of the film. She is becoming more aggressive, independent, and dominant towards her sister and her classmates. Ginger is not just growing up, she is becoming the monster that lies within her. She is becoming the monstrous feminine.
You know when you kiss a boy for the first time and it feels like your entire body is on vibrate?
Yeah?
It's that good. Well, that's nice.
Another take on growing up a monstrous feminine is found in Jennifer's body through the journey of sexual identity. Like Ginger Snaps, Jennifer's body uses the destructive nature of the teen girl experience as a cause for its horror, resulting in the creation of a monstrous feminine. The body horror associated with the developing body and being sexually desired is cruel and confusing while coming of age. Popular high school bombshell Jennifer is mistaken for a virgin and is forced to be the ritual sacrifice for a trashed indie rock band in exchange for fame and success. As a result, Jennifer becomes possessed by a demon and develops an appetite for eating teenage boys. Her best friend Needy must learn to step out of Jennifer's shadow if she hopes to save her from her curse. Popular girls like Jennifer are the standard for acceptable female appearance and behavior in high school culture. Her beauty allows her to have her pick of whomever she deems attractive, and she wields this power to serve her own needs. This is taken away when she becomes a living sacrifice. Her monstrous transformation into a boy-eating demon is presented as involuntary, much like the changes of puberty. Jennifer goes from a bright-eyed, immaculate cheerleader into a tired, shell version of her former self. These changes her body goes through strips her of her power as the most attractive girl in her high school class, which can be seen as a metaphor for teen girl puberty. In her article, Monster Pains, Aviva Briefel notes that violence in the horror film is often initiated by the female monster getting her period, an event that is either suggested or overtly displayed. Jennifer's need for eating human flesh seemingly coincides with the typical menstrual cycle, which we see when Needy asks Jennifer if her symptoms are a result of PMS.
No offense, but you look really tired. Is everything okay?
No. I feel like boo-boo. My skin is breaking out and my hair is dull and lifeless.
Are you PMSing or something?
PMS isn't real, Needy. It was invented by the boy-run media to make us seem crazy.
It is when Jennifer discovers that she can regain her power and her gorgeous looks by seducing and eating male victims that she becomes a monster. She embraces her man-eating cravings and acts out her anger towards her plight through the boys she deemed unworthy of her attention at the beginning of the film. Because of her acts of monstrousness are linked to her sexuality, we understand that she needs to murder these boys in order to maintain her health. The film also implies that Jennifer's power and confidence are developed from her numerous sexual encounters. Outside of film, multiple sexual partners used as a mask for low self-esteem and sexually active teenage girls are a misconception of female sexuality. While men are encouraged to engage with various partners, young women are objectified or demonized for their sexual history. In both films, teen girls are granted supernatural powers at a time when their bodies are changing internally and externally. With nightmarish body transformations and extreme bloodshed, we as an audience feel horrified and uncomfortable at the thought of our own bodies being put through such experiences. Coming-of-age horror combines reality with fiction by taking the genuine horrors of puberty and creating a teen girl monster. During a time when young women feel as though they have no control over what's happening to their bodies, these films give them powers they can control. But these powers, just like their new physical attributes and feelings, can be dangerous when you have no idea what you're supposed to do with them. It's just like adulthood, because it's not the result that's terrifying, but the process in between.